22nd October, 1930, United Kingdom. "You called me Lisa, madam?" Jasmine asked courteously, stopping at the door. "Yes, come in," Lisa retorted, spinning around to look at Jasmine. Before Jasmine's arrival, Lisa was standing near the window, looking at the diminishing moon between the clouds in the sky. Her stunning black hair was let down, which was blowing in the cold breeze due to an unbolted window when Jasmine's voice broke her attentiveness. After attaining Lisa's approval, Jasmine entered the chamber and stood graciously waiting for the next order from her lady. "Come sit here, Jasmine." Lisa beckoned her to the two single sofas in front of the fireplace. Jasmine nodded and went to be seated on one of them. Lisa, dressed in a white nightgown, also took a seat and cross-legged her lean porcelain legs in front of her. Instead of saying anything, she observed Jasmine raptly. Jasmine was a gorgeous 26-year-old girl who wore the red emblematic skirt of personnel in that era, and her brown hair was tied back in the form of a hair bow. The orange reflection of the fireplace made the impression of Jasmine more alluring. The similar auburn reflection was also deteriorating on Lisa's stunning face. No one could voice out, or even think that she was a 35-year-old connubial woman and a mother of one child. She still appeared to be in her 20s. "I hope you are not having any problem over here?" Lisa finally broke the stillness in her firm voice. "No, madam." She shook her head like an obedient servant she was. Lisa slightly smirked at her nervousness. "Are you sure? If there is any problem, let me know, and I will take straight action on it." She lifted her one arched, perfect brow. No, madam. You provided me accommodation and employment in your dynasty. This is your kind-heartedness, or else my stepmother and brother would have left me with nothing and would have made my life hell." She shivered while remembering her tough times with her stepmother and brother. "You have taken care of my house so well in just 1 month. Otherwise, I would have been stranded with so many staffs approaching and then parting after a few days of employment. Mr. Smith had expressed that no maid is going to stay here because of my fuming nature. But you came and proved them mistaken." She chuckled lightly, which in return made Jasmine stretch her lips a little. "You are my benefactor, madam. Your anger is also dear to me," Jasmine said with such devotion that Lisa deeply admired it. "I wish I also had a patron who would be generous enough to ease all my complications in the blink of an eye," Lisa moaned contemplatively. Jasmine became intrigued. "You just have to command, ma'am, and I will be even ready to be headed for you." She immediately put her hand on her ample chest and offered her services. "If that is so, can you do something for me?" Her eyes glinted like a child getting gifts on Christmas Eve. Before the astonished Jasmine could ask a question, Lisa rose from her seat and marched over to the writing table, where a candle was burning on a candle stand. She undid the drawer, took out an envelope, and came back to her seat, but did not sit down. Jasmine had many queries in her eyes. "Have you ever treasured anyone, Jasmine?" Lisa asked without warning, looking at the envelope. "No," was the one-word answer coming from Jasmine's mouth. But more questions were emerging in her innocent mind. "I did. That too, when I didn't even know the denotation of the word love." Her eyes were still on the envelope and her expression was solemn. "His name is Edward," she let her pain out. Lisa's announcement of love in the name of someone other than her husband Smith staggered Jasmine. "I was 10 years old when he shifted with his parents to the house right opposite ours. He was also my age mate. We became good friends. Then, after 4 years, we had to shift somewhere else. But we still didn't break our connection. We continued to talk through letters, and still do today." Lisa's last sentence was full of love and amazement in Jasmine's eyes. "So, why didn't you guys get married?" She couldn't stop herself from questioning. "Because my father did not agree with this." Jasmine felt sorry for her immediately after hearing this. "What can I help you with?" she meekly asked. Instead of responding, Lisa held out the envelope to her. "Read this." The order was very bizarre, but it was an obligation to carry it out, so she held the envelope and opened it. A letter found inside was written in beautiful handwriting. As she read the letter, the color of disbelief and apprehension amplified on her face as if something unanticipated had occurred. "Oh my God." After reading the whole letter, a surprising gasp came out of Jasmine's lips, and she looked up at Lisa. Yes, Edward is only a visitor in this world for a few days. Lisa looked miserable when her eyes met with Jasmine. The pain was pouring out from his words, the pain of losing his beloved without getting it. Edward's got a fatal illness that is swallowing him. He wants to spend his last days with me, his desire for me, a vocation for me, and I'm in such a chain of rituals. That can't go back to her lover and give him a few evenings of her own. While crying with anger, Lisa swatted her hand and dropped the candle stand on the table, which not only smothered the candles, but also wounded Lisa's hand. Ma'am, please. Jasmine quickly came over, grabbed her, settled her down on the sofa, and then sat beside her knees. Seeing the blood coming from Lisa's hand, Jasmine instantly took out her white handkerchief from her gown pocket and placed it on her palm to halt the blood. This handkerchief was very beloved to her, as the last sign of her father. So after making sure the blood was stopped, she put the handkerchief back. Please, ma'am, take care of yourself. She patted Lisa's back in a small attempt to ease her. Lisa was howling with hiccups while hiding her face in one hand, and Jasmine's heart started to fill up at the same time. Jasmine was fuming at this cruel world, which always positions as a wall between two lovers. Would you do me a courtesy, Jasmine? Suddenly, Lisa elevated her head and requested Jasmine with a shine of hope in her swollen red eyes. Her beautiful face turned pink from crying. You just have to order, madam. Can you be Lisa for a few days and spend 7 nights with my Edward? Lisa's next question knocks her like lightning. Me? She was dumbfounded. Yes, you. It wouldn't be possible for me to stay away from home for so long, Mr. Smith would doubt it. But no one would pay so much attention to your non-attendance. But now Jasmine's sanities were beginning to flop. But how can I? I mean, they'll know I'm not Lisa. She barely controlled her disbelief. Don't worry, he won't recognize you. We've never seen each other since we were young. We've only communicated through letters, Lisa said while Jasmine was lost in thought. It's only a matter of 7 days, my dear. Because of you, someone's last wish will be fulfilled, and he will be able to say goodbye to the world with peace of mind. Lisa moderately held her chin. What was not in Liza's tone? Love, longing, begging, appeal, anticipation. In front of which, Jasmine eventually became helpless. 23rd October, 1930. The very next day, Jasmine was ready to go. Lisa had organized the expedition, a black carriage with 2 horses driven by a middle-aged coachman. And because the journey was extensive, passable necessities were also made for sustenance and beverage for Jasmine and the coachman. Jasmine, wearing a red long coat and black boots, approached the carriage, where a retainer was already standing to open the door for her. As she got into it, the servant closed the door softly. Staring out the window, Jasmine saw up to find Lisa standing at the top floor window of the mansion, watching at her. Lisa put her hand on her chest with an appreciative smile as her eyes met, as if thanking her. In response, Jasmine also grinned and bowed slowly. Coachman took the reins of the horses and motioned them to move. They leaped into motion, and the boar dashed out of the grand gate of the beautiful manor, which Lisa scrutinized until it was out of sight. 24th October, 1930. After a long journey, Jasmine finally reached her endpoint. Before that, she was leaning back in the seat, her eyes were closed, and was semi-reclined when the carriage stopped moving. She straightened up, removed the curtain of the window, and watched out when she saw someone standing very close to her. We have reached the destination, ma'am. It was Coachman, whom she was suddenly startled to see. After regaining her breath, she came out while shaking her head and was frightened to see the giant castle in front of her. In the orange light of the falling evening, this towering gray castle was both attractive and mysterious at the same time. She recovered awareness at the sound of horses. When she tilted her neck, She saw the horses running and turning their backs away from Jasmine, while her bag was already there on the ground. She was a little disappointed at the coachman's selfish act, but on the other, I thought passed in her mind that, what's the point of him staying over here? After shaking her head deliberately, Jasmine grabbed the bag by the belt and stepped inside the cab. Her loose brown hair was suddenly blown by a gust of wind and then fell back into place. She stopped and looked across the bridge, but after finding nothing tangible, she resumed her walking. The inner gate of the castle was also open. Standing in the middle of it, she was enchanted once again. The ceiling was so high and many luxurious chandeliers were hanging from it, that the sight looked unimaginable. The rays of the sun were reflected on the shuttered glass of the tall windows above and below. Jasmine had never seen a castle so big, so magnificent, yet so silent. Her trance was eventually broken by the beautiful melody of the piano keys, hitting and emerging from somewhere inside. She left the bag there and followed the beautiful tune herself. As she moved forward, the sound of the piano was getting closer. She stopped in front of an open, luxurious room. A man was sitting in the middle of the room, playing a grand black piano with his back to Jasmine. As if the man sensed Jasmine's arrival, his hands stopped moving on the piano keys, and a mysterious smile appeared on his lips. "Welcome to my kingdom, darling." His rich, heavy voice went right through Jasmine's ears and touched her soul. As he stood up and turned around, Jasmine felt her heart stop beating. She had never imagined such a handsome man, who was actually in front of her. Dressed in a huge black coat and black jeans, his 6-foot-tall figure and strong, broad body were more prominent. His milk-white complexion enhanced his sculptor face, which was carved perfectly, and that blue eyes could plunge anyone's heart into the depths of the ocean. He slowly took a step and stood right in front of her, who was looking at this beautiful person. His deep blue eyes also wandered over Jasmine's attractive face with interest